Welcome to the B-Scar TV podcast, the home of high-quality conversation. And we're back with another episode of B-Scar TV, and I have a very, very special guest today, Qiana Patterson.
Yep, that's me.
AKA Q-Pat.
Yes.
Yeah?
Or just the Q.
The Q.
I like the Q.
AKA Q.
Yes.
Love that. Qiana, we've known each other now for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
It's been at least 2 years. Digitally. We've had a digital relationship. This is the first time meeting in 3D.
In real life. I love it.
How crazy is that?
I mean, given everything that we've experienced over the last few years, I don't think it's that crazy actually anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you can develop a whole relationship and not have met one another in 3D. But I think it's really cool to be able to have connected and, continue to connect with people that are nowhere in your geographic proximity, but be able to create relationships, and this kind of network effect is just growing and growing.
Yeah, I think it's an example of when you have shared values or alignment and you build trust, anything is possible, right? And I think you and I connected over shared values and a vision for the future that we all want and we believe that we deserve. And so I think it's totally natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We connected over investing for everyone out there. And Qiana, you were one of the key leadership roles in the Cap Table Coalition.
That's right.
I was introduced to CTC via Emmanuel Pleites, who is a Stanford grad and connected through Stanford alumni circles. And, opening doors. CTC is opening doors to historically disadvantaged or underserved investors. Is that how you would say it?
I would say underrepresented for sure. Right. Yeah. And really it's the marginalized, those who oftentimes can be in the right room at the right time, but not in the right conversation. And we want to ensure that we are in the right room at the right time, having the right conversations with the right people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's crazy. I mean, I would say I'm a product of that.
Totally.
The circles that I typically, as a professional football player, am around, these communities are usually pretty far removed from the venture capital community or private equity, or it's just hard to kind of get to know the right people. And through CTC and you guys, I feel like my network has grown exponentially just from, these conversations, and not even just the network, but just the access to knowledge.
Yeah, I think it was pretty astounding is that you went to almost the best university in the country, if not the world, especially when it comes to venture and private equity and this sort of land of startup culture, right? What school comes to mind when you think of Silicon Valley and when you think of, founders? The first thing that people think of is Stanford. So you were effectively in the right room at the right time, because there's never been a time that Stanford hasn't been the pinnacle of those things, right? And yet it took an organization, a group of people like all of us leading and building the Cap Table Coalition to bring you into these conversations that, quite frankly, you've deserved to be in all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think with, coming out of Stanford, if that's how I met Emmanuel in the first place, right? So I was blessed and privileged to have that. But then Emmanuel being so intentional with you guys to, not just give exposure to venture capital and investing, but also be like, hey, here's a deal.
Right.
Explore this deal. No pressure if you want to invest or not. But I also, want to you want to set up a time and holla at me, and let's talk through why I think this deal is a good one or not. That's the type of access I think is tougher, regardless of what school you go to, even going to Stanford or, whatever college you go to, being able to have someone that you trust or a community that you trust and be able to bounce ideas off of and learn from. That's really, I think, what you guys have been able to do. And I'm appreciative.
We're appreciative of people like you and all the people that make up the Cap Table Coalition. I think the one sort of nugget that is super important to recognize and to essentially affirm in you as well is that you belong, and we're not just seeking from you capital that you may be wanting to deploy into, what you consider to be high quality companies.
There we go. Come on
yes,
now.
I got it. But we're seeking your advice on how we evaluate certain deals, right? I've reached out to you and said, hey, I'm looking at this deal. What do you think about this? Because I, as an investor, don't know everything. I do not know every type of company. I certainly have expertise in certain areas, and those types of companies are ones that I can excel at in terms of doing the due diligence for. Right. But there's definitely deal flow that I get access to that I quite frankly don't fully understand the model. I don't fully understand the opportunity, and I want to lean into people like you who have expertise in those areas where I can say, hey, help me look at this deal. And if not just for my own learning, is to also then help, right, that founder get a connection either to you as a potential vendor, partner, investor, what have you, right? And that's also sort of the framework by which we are operating in sort of removing any barriers that we have artificially created that exists that you can't do that, right? And we want to essentially sort of democratize that.
Yes, that makes sense. I find venture capital so fascinating. I love the concept of teams and working to build an idea and, have an entrepreneurial spirit myself. For you, your pathway into venture capital and investing, how did you get your foot in the door?
Very unconventional, but I'm not ashamed to actually say how unconventional it was. My first profession, I was a middle school teacher in Los Angeles. It was one of the best professions and one of the best things that I could have done in my life. And at the end of 7 years, I looked at the past 7 years and I thought about my future. And what I fundamentally asked myself at that point was whether or not I could be better at something else. I knew that I loved teaching. I knew that I loved being such an integral part of education and the lives of children, but I didn't know if I was better at something else. And I simply just told myself, try something else. If you fail at it, you can always go back to teaching.
Right.
And
this was like 7 years post-grad?
This was 7 years graduating.
Okay. Gotcha.
And when I resigned at the end of the 7th year, I didn't know. I had no plan. I did not know what I was going to do. I want to be I had no idea. I had no idea.
A step into the dark.
I was stepping out, into the abyss.
Wow.
And I was really excited, and I was really I was curious about a lot of things, and I essentially told myself there's nothing that I couldn't do. So just go out and try it. And I landed in a tech company that happened to be an ed tech B2B enterprise SaaS company.
Okay.
So at one point, if you think about it, I was the end user, and at one point I was the buyer, right? So intimately, I had intimate knowledge on both the persona of the buyer and the persona of the user because I was that person for a long period of time. And so it made sense. This startup that was like, had under 10 people in the company and was like, yeah, we could hire you to be a trainer. So I would just go in to these schools and I would train teachers and the end users on the software.
Okay.
What better? And so that was my entryway into the world of tech.
Wow. What a perfect bridge.
I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that that first company that I was with, by the 5th year, so I started out at the very bottom, I would consider the bottom of the totem pole, as a trainer. And I worked my way up in 5 years to interim CEO. So
All right.
maybe I was better at other things, or I was just as good as other things too.
Yeah.
And I just learned so much. I dug my heels into sitting next to the engineers, sitting next to the front end engineers, the graphic designers, the salespeople, the operators, the founders, to really get a really good understanding of the business and understand not only the business that we were operating, but understanding sort of the wider sort of framework and industry that we were operating in. How do we get better and be the number one?
Yeah.
And that was what drove me. And, you spend, 10 plus years, I won't say my age, but 10 plus years as an operator was sort of the nomenclature that, tech and VC ecosystem likes to use now.
Right.
I was effectively an operator for 15 years in tech companies, and you understand and learn a lot about what it takes to operate and scale a company to be a world-class, amazing company that venture capital just comes and wants to throw money into.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. I didn't know this about your first career.
Well,
but
you knew that you were going to get high quality content
on
from
now.
me. So, I mean, what did you expect?
I'm about to get some high quality guidance and advice right now too, because I'm curious, when you transitioned out of teaching and you started with the ed tech company, and over 5 years you went from trainer all the way up to essentially the operator.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly did you learn like business fundamentals and the understanding how it worked and strategy? Did you have leaders that you learned from, or did you like do some extra reading, or how did you do that?
That's a really good question. Transparently, I don't think that I had any model for success. And I don't know if I actually felt comfortable with saying what I did not know. What I did do, though, is, as I said, I did sit next to all the teams. I sort of ingrained myself in what they were doing and how they were doing it, and also ingrained myself in the business of the industry that we were operating in, and really had tried to sort of lean in all facets as much as possible into like what would make a really great business. And obviously the two men that founded the company, I was like watching them and seeing what was working, and then recognizing also what wasn't working.
Right.
And then by that point, I could like pull different levers that I could say, well, that didn't work. Let's try this. Right. And I think for me, it was really a lot of about watching the numbers. Were we growing? Were sales increasing? Were we moving and producing faster? Were we able to replicate and scale as big as we wanted to? And so, truthfully, it was trial and error. I did not have a model for success. I didn't know who I should turn to and could turn to in that sense. And that's largely because I'm a first generation college student. My mother didn't graduate from high school. I had no model for what like a professional, successful Black woman was going to be like or should be like in sort of the private sector. I had no models other than maybe what we might have saw on TV. And I'm old enough to sort of come in the age where there wasn't like LinkedIn and there wasn't like social media to say like, this is how you should do it. And so it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of leaning into my curiosity. When I was a teacher, we have this like saying of like what you don't know, and what you don't have, you're the really good beg, borrow, and steal. And I like leaned into that as an operator as well. Like, what could I beg for? What could I borrow? What could I learn? What could I steal so that I could replicate, and all actually in a good way, right? To actually perfect. And there's definitely times that I made mistakes, and then along the way, I think after like year 10, what I did say to myself is, I didn't know why I did the things that I did from a business perspective. Like I couldn't call the thing, right? And I didn't have the language of like LTV and CAC and all of those kinds of things. And so I said to myself, well, here's another opportunity to like lean in and learn. Went back to school, became a Trojan and to fight on, and got my MBA so that I could could name the thing, right?
Right.
And I could
I got
understand
you.
why I was doing the things that I was doing, and then figure out if I was doing something wrong, I could perfect it, which was really an amazing thing to do
Yeah.
at that point in my career.
Trial by fire.
Yeah.
That was, oh, wow.
Definitely.
That's incredible.
And it worked.
Would you say that there were longer days as a middle school teacher or as a as a startup art operator? How would you compare the days? Because I know teaching ain't no joke.
I think that I have always been the type of person professionally, no matter what I was doing, that always went the extra mile. So
Yeah.
I was that teacher from when you think about my days, did I just like once I left and pulled out of the parking lot, did my day end? The answer is no, my day didn't end. I was grading papers. I was doing all these things. I was prepping. I was planning. But the other thing that I did is, and your listeners might laugh at this, is that what I recognize is that like there were things about technology that just didn't exist that I wish that existed at that point. And so like, as an example, like I recognize that like some of the students weren't doing homework. And when I would talk to them, they'd say like, I forgot, or I didn't write something down, or I needed help with this. And then I was like, well, what's the solution that I could come up with that could like bridge that gap, right? Which meant that my days got longer. So what I did was I got a second landline in my house.
Okay.
And I would record on a voicemail, right, the homework for the day. And then I basically created my own homework hotline where the kids and the parents could call me on that line in the evening if they needed help, right? And so when you think about were my days longer or shorter as an operator, my days have always been long because I'm always like leaning into what works and doesn't work. And I think the person who's like really like dialed in never like turns it off. Like you're always thinking, ideating, curating like what could work. And honestly, when I was an operator in tech and in SaaS and a small engineering team, like I got those alerts if a server went down. I got alerts too. I knew that we had a DDoS attack, like all of those things. I'd be in the gym at like 5 a.m. and something would go wrong, and I would just like get off that treadmill and go straight into the office. And so like I've always been that type of like person who shows up for my team, whether it's my students, whether it's my team in the engineering staff or whatever. And that's just, I think, ingrained in like my body and my mind. So I don't see a difference of like how I operated in both of those worlds. I never am able to fully turn it off. I would like to.
Right.
Yes. But I don't ever fully turn it off.
Yeah, no, I have a little bit of that in me as well.
Yeah.
So I feel you there. The homework hotline.
The homework hotline.
Hey,
listen.
That is next level. And you were answering calls.
I was answering calls in the evening. I was talking to parents. I was talking to kids. Sometimes they just wanted to talk to me. Right. And I recognize
what they call you? Miss Patterson?
They call me Miss Patterson. And a funny story, I went to yoga last night because it's so LA to do.
You got a Miss Patterson.
Hot yoga. And I was like getting that eucalyptus towel, and I turned around and someone said, Miss Patterson.
Wow.
And I was like, Yatunde. And I actually said Nurse Yatunde because now one of my former students is a nurse.
Oh, man.
And we sat there and we talked, and we were actually taking the same yoga class. So I moved my mat next to her, and we did yoga together for an hour long.
Wow.
And so I'll be having lunch with her soon as a reconnection. So yeah.
So rewarding.
It never turns off, right? I'm always going to be Miss Patterson. And I was like, oh my God, she looks the same. And she was like, you look the same, Miss Patterson. And I'm like, God, like she's in her 30s. Wow.
That's what some hot yoga do for you.
Listen.
Hey, Qiana, that hot yoga. Keep you right.
Sunscreen and hot yoga. Eating healthy, but not shopping at Erewhon because who can afford that stuff?
Shopping where?
Erewhon. Do you know about Erewhon?
I don't know about Erewhon.
Oh my gosh.
I've been recently at Trader Joe's.
I mean,
I'm Whole Foods historically.
Yes.
New Seasons in Portland.
Yeah, New Seasons is so amazing. I was just there. It was
Can't
great.
beat it. Can't
It was
beat
awesome.
Arrow
That cookie,
wands,
that
though.
cookie though, at New Seasons, super awesome.
Not familiar with the cookie. I typically
Erewhon,
go
it's
for
like
the
a.
olives.
I don't have TikTok, but like I guess on TikTok they're like talking about the Erewhon smoothies that cost like $20. You know, they put like the, all the kinds of things in it, and it turns into a $20 smoothie apparently.
If I'm buying a smoothie for $20, my mood, my energy, I better be on tens for the next 24 hours.
It better come with a lotto ticket in my mind,
Come
right?
on.
Because I want somehow there to be like some big payback to me. Like, I want to feel good. I want to look good, but I also want the potential to like win $1 million.
Give me my money back.
Right.
And then some.
10, 20, 30, 100 fold. Yes.
Yeah. 100x me.
Yes.
Off this smoothie investment right here.
Seriously. Which is not a bad idea, but like that's for another story.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Yeah. We'll dig into that. Self-care routine. Ooh. It's kind of, this is an interesting segue because as you were talking about the switch on being able to turn it on and off, say it's a blessing and a curse at times. More blessing than a curse, but like it always can be better. And I always want to be better. I always want to grow and I always want to learn. And this thing can be optimized to be, and then I have an idea. Okay, I want to do that idea and just keep going. And it's been, I attribute a lot of my success to, on the football field, the willingness to go and work out and continue to train extra, off the field, business pursuits, lifting things up off the ground. But at the same time, it also can be like a form of restlessness, I've found. And I'm trying to, especially as I mature and, I get older and trying to just figure out, embrace this thing that I have, this blessing, right? But then also be able to, tame it when it needs to be tamed. With all the things that you do, and you kind of told us that you don't necessarily always turn it off, but how have you found some balance in that?
My true balance is, it's going to sound so LA, but going to the farmer's market on Sunday. It's me time, it's quiet time, buying in season fruits and vegetables and planning out really healthy, awesome meals. I'm always on, right? It feels like I'm always on. And so to get sort of that like create sort of my own form of respite is really super important. And it could be, like I said, the farmer's market, creating a really awesome meal, reading, soaking up some sun with lots of sunscreen. It could be a hike, Los Leones, or it could be going down to Playa del Rey and walking the beach. I think it's mostly it's in the form of solitude because I'm always with others. I'm always talking to other people. So part of it is trying to like quiet my mind so that creativity and joy can reside and grow. And that's important when you're being pulled in a lot of different directions. How do I pour into myself and figure out like my needs? And I know for a fact that for me, it's like eating good, listening to really great music, lighting candles, meditating to really like center myself, because I do feel like to some degree it's my work in no way is like the work that you do, like putting your body on a line, right? Physically and mentally. So I won't say that I'm physically putting my body on the line, but I am sort of putting my body in terms of how much I'm moving and how much I'm traveling and how much I'm talking and doing and going and speaking at this event and hosting that event and doing all these things with founders and things like that is taxing on our bodies. And I think that that's part of the thing about, you call it like as you're moving to these different phases of your life, of what happens in our bodies and our minds as we mature. And what do we need to do that was different? Like, years ago, you probably could have like partied until like 4 a.m. and then went and worked out at 7 and you didn't skip a beat. That might not be the case right now, right?
No longer the case.
And so I'm acknowledging that it feels like sometimes that I can just go.
Right.
And I have to remind myself, okay, you need to stop. And that stop, like I said, is just like slowing down so that I can like hear what needs to be heard and create and be curious and wonder about things.
Yeah, certainly. And I think the physical effects of stress are very real, right? And so I think the more things that are going on, the higher probability you have for stress and, potential stress, and the intentional being able to stay even keel through that. And it sounds like those are the moments when you go to the farmer's market or you go to yoga or you take that walk, is being able to remain calm in those situations, or take yourself back to neutral after maybe some more stressful scenarios, or all the moving and grooving.
I like that, like going back to neutral.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's pretty profound, because I think part of that, like as you said, that stress, cortisol levels in your body, how do you like reduce those things, right?
Yeah.
And trying to get to a state of like neutrality, perhaps, right, in our bodies, in our minds, and our hearts, is probably like really core. And that's probably why I try to get as much, which I don't get much of, but get as much quiet time as possible, so that I could try to get close to that neutral, but I'm not sure I always know where it is, but I try to get to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been interesting to hear how other people do it, and I found there's kind of this, I don't want to call it a passive like way to get to neutral, but this like intentional, like more meditative, or taking these walks that like you're doing something it's intentional, but it's passive, as opposed to, like, I've heard Mark Zuckerberg talk about what he does to bring himself back to neutral, and how he can't go on jogs, or he can't like ride a bike,
Right.
because he's still in his head. He can't shut it off. And so that's why he's leaned into jujitsu, and he's leaned into like this windsurfing and being in the water, and these things where you have to keep your mind present, or else like, you're going to fall off the thing, or that guy's going to choke you out, or, whatever.
Right.
But it's like forcing your mind to be present. And they found this recently, actually, as I went out and played some pickup basketball, and I was just in the moment of just hooping. My thought is only about my teammates and communicating, having fun, whatever. I'm hooping, and afterwards it just felt this like, oh, damn, that was good. It wasn't in my head at all. And so I think there's kind of like two sides to it.
Yeah, I think when I was younger, I just went. It was just constant state of going, right? And now I'm like, oh, I value when I can calm my brain down, and like figuring when I did yoga, like how long it actually takes me to actually like silence my brain. Right? Like that practice of like, and that's why yoga is like a practice. You're never at sort of the zenith of yoga. It is a constant practice, because you're constantly, I think, trying to sort of tamper down, all the thoughts in your head. And certainly we live in a time and a place and a space where there's so many inputs constantly. Like for me, it's sort of like I get so much deal flow. It's never ending. Never ending.
We like a lot of deal flow.
We like it. It's
like deal flow.
Never ending. So how do you basically sort of set your body and your mind up and be fully present to actually like push through and actually give all of those deals a shot, right?
Yeah.
And look at it like really holistically, each and every one of them.
Yeah.
Catch me at a bad time, I'm just going to be like, yeah, it's going to like zoop over my head, right?
And that could be the one.
That could be the one.
I mean, listen,
you can't win them all. You can't. You won't.
It's a fact.
I mean, someone wants to give me like $10 billion. Well, I can certainly try, but
We'll try our hardest with 10 bill.
Yeah.
Come on now.
More than try hard. We going for it.
Keep that switch on.
All the time.
Are you a vinyasa or a Bikram?
Vinyasa.
Vinyasa?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hot and hot.
60 minutes?
60 minutes.
Those are good.
Yes.
Those are really good.
Yeah. You got to sweat. I feel like if I don't get a sweat, then it's not really working out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In college, I did Bikram yoga. I did a 30-day challenge, 90-minute. I might be lying about that. 60-minute sessions.
Uh-huh.
In the 30-day challenge, you had to get 30 of them in 30 days. And there were some days I'd miss a day and then I'd double up for a day. And I love yoga, and that particular window of time I was doing that when I was recovering from an injury, and it was between going from Berkeley to Stanford, so I wasn't with the team, and then my yoga became my practice. And where I started day 1 versus where I was at day 30 with those exercise and Bikram's cool because it takes you, it's
those flows.
Yeah, it's like the 15 movements or however many movements is they can fit into that hour, and it's one after the other, and they're all connected in some way. But every class you just get a little bit better at that pose, or maybe you regress and you're not as quote unquote good at that pose, but you just kind of have to embrace that and say, hey, this is where I'm at today. Let me keep my mind right and just keep on moving through this class, and like you're saying, try to shut off the mind. But I really, really love yoga. The physical benefits are great. After those 30 days, I was cut.
You were cut?
I was cut up after them 30 days.
And how often do you practice yoga now?
Now, not as much.
Really?
Yeah, no, there's, my training regimen is basically 6 days a week. And during the week, it's every morning at, we get in there by 6:30 and we'll start our workout at 6:30. So I'll get in there around 6:15, foam roll, everything will be done by 8:30, 9. Then Saturdays I take it a little bit slower, but I'm usually on the field. And this is like me choosing my workout, and I'm running, and I go out there with my dad if I can. That's something we've been doing for our whole lives. But through all of that, there's not a whole lot of time for the yoga.
Okay.
But when I finish the season and we go for maybe 6 weeks without my training group together, I'll do some yoga and I'll dig back into that. So the last time I did yoga was in Miami after the season had ended.
Well, the good thing is you can always go back and you can just pick up practice whenever. I mean, I have periods of time where I can't do it because I'm traveling and moving and, doing lots of different things. But when I go back, it always feels like home on the mat. Always feels like home. And so maybe for me, like you, home in some ways is the field. For me, home oftentimes is the mat. Yeah.
I love when the instructors start off the class. You're on your mat. Center your mind. You're here for you.
Yes.
Just I want all that. Give me all the inspiration pre-class, please.
Yeah.
And when I'm in my savasana at the end, talk to me.
Yep.
Yeah, those are the best
or
instructors.
Not, right? Just be in your mind, right?
So to take a really strong, just 90-degree pivot away from yoga, let's not jump into some artificial intelligence.
Ooh.
And AI. OpenAI and everything that they've been doing at Microsoft dumped $18 billion into,
a lot of money,
and looking like maybe it's going to be some more.
AI is an interesting thing for me, less so who, right?
Right. More about what?
For me, it's more about what, and I've said this already, I'm old enough to know and been in tech space for a while that there was a AI hype cycle 12 years ago. And I remember back then that everyone was slapping AI on things then. And I remember talking to my engineers and, the team and stuff like, what is this AI thing? What could it do? And what is it? And they really candidly were like, a lot of this stuff that we consider to be AI isn't really AI. It's a bunch of what we call if-then statements. If this, then do this. And it was a lot of those types of things. The thing that I actually respect and value about sort of the waves of technology and innovation is that oftentimes at the very beginning, right, the very beginning of, let's say, AI, you get a lot of unknowns, and you get a lot of companies that don't have a there yet. Right? Either the technology isn't there, the customer base isn't there, the problem isn't big enough, right?
Yeah.
And so what I respect about this is that they were onto something and the researchers and all of the people that we actually should be leaning into, who actually like DeepMind and a bunch of other organizations and academics who literally just kept leaning into generative AI. What were the possibilities? And they just toiled away for the last 10 years, right? And what we have today, right, is something vastly beyond what we had 10, 12 years ago. And so I value that now what we have is a whole set of problems and a whole set of things that exist that now from a standpoint of using AI can solve for, right? Whether it's productivity or a company that I just invested in that is AI company and enabled is like what happens when you make a reservation at a restaurant and you're running late. You 15, 20 minutes late and you're going to call, you're going to text, what are you going to do? Well, you might think I'm going to call, but who am I going to talk to? It's a busy restaurant. Are they going to answer or whatever? What if you could actually connect a system that is AI empowered that can say, hey, you call and you go, hey, this is Brennan, I'm running late for my 8:30 p.m. dinner reservation. And it goes, oh, okay. Are you Brennan? Because it recognizes your phone number. And you say, yes, it is Brennan. Okay. How late are you going to be, Brennan? And you can say, I think I'm going to be about 10 minutes late. And the system says, okay, no problem. We've noted. We'll see you when you get here. That's all AI empowered. So now you reduce the manpower that physically you had someone who probably was your hostess who was also like checking people in, but also answering the phone. Now you've eliminated that. And then you can move really quickly through moving through those reservations that you have. So that is distinctly a problem that exists, right? And that now that we have the technology that can actually do that, right, for you in a really good way, let's do it, right? And so I really like to think about, like, can AI solve a problem that exists, and are people willing to pay for that problem to be solved by AI or any other technology? If the answer is yes, then you go for it. That's it.
I would imagine in that example that you just gave, there could be AI on the, for you too, that can recognize that you are going to be 10 minutes late and prompt you like, hey, would you like me to make this call to the restaurant? Or,
I love that.
Or make this call, or send a text to, whoever you're going to meet up with, because I know your location, I know where you're going because it's on your calendar, and let them know like, hey, ETA is, 15 minutes after. Or
mean, that's the beauty of technology. I think, like, if you use Google, if you have things on your Google Calendar and it's connected to your maps and everything, it'll tell you when you should leave, right, for that next appointment or for that reservation. When I get into my car now, like, it pulls from my calendar and it like automatically knows where I'm going and will just route me there, right? And it'll tell me what time I'm going to get there. I do think that since a lot of technology knows a lot about us, like what's on our calendar, who we're meeting, who's there, blah, 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 where is it going to be? Now that next layer is, you're going to be late. Do you want to send a text message to Brennan that says that you're in traffic? Do you want us to call that restaurant? Like, I think that power of it is going to be immense. And like, whether or not we're going to lean into all of those things then is unknown. But I do think that there's like immense data, and that's the thing that is really interesting about AI, is that literally it's a massive data set, and it is parsing through that data and trying to make decisions based on the data that it has. It's not sentient. It's not coming up with these things on its own. It's literally mining and doing some predictive stuff based on the data that it has.
Yeah, and I think the predictive and suggestive stuff that we've seen, when your car basically takes your next location from your calendar and puts it on your screen and routes you there. Those are the things I think that will continue to definitely be more, in my mind, I think, integrated into people's lives. It makes things easier. So, as capabilities increase that way, but it'll be interesting from like a productivity standpoint. I think there will be the hyper productivity for like this next generation who's coming up with ChatGPT tools and like this advanced Bing and all of these different things, to be like, they can have every question that they have answered in a matter of minutes. I think there's just so much more that can be done in a matter of 12 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a way to think about it. What I'm hoping for with all this advancement is that we get to not just simply do more, right? Because if you're just going to say, okay, this thing will do this, so now you can do more of that or do this new thing, right? Us as humans, I think, are still sort of embodying this like hustle, move our body through all these different things.
Yeah.
And what I'm wondering is whether or not we can build out tools really around like wellness and things like that enable us to like not be in that sort of frantic state of like what next, right? So if you feel like it takes a lot of stress or energy for you to like come up with dinner, let's say, and people say like maybe you're going to have smart refrigerators and knows exactly what's in your refrigerator. And so rather than you thinking about like, what am I going to cook and have an elevated stress, like it tells you like, hey, you can have a chopped salad tonight based on what's in your refrigerator and what's still good in your refrigerator, right? So I feel like if it can help alleviate some of those things so that you can actually like lean into like the things that you do find joy in, I think is really exciting. And also like, Brennan, I want to be human. I don't want to be like led by a computer. Like, I want like spontaneity. I want creativity. Like, I don't want my life to be so regimented. Like, I'm already working. I'm already living by a calendar. When I'm down, when I'm not doing work, right? Like, do I want to move through my weekends in such a way that it almost feels like work? And I know that a bunch of us feel that way. Like I have to like pre-schedule everything with my friends, and I want to just be, spontaneous about things. And so I wonder if it's going to be more harmful or helpful as we sort of pursue still sort of being in our bodies, in wellness, in our humanness.
Yeah. That's a great point. Hopefully you'll be able to serve both.
Yeah.
Because I imagine the reason that humans, we continue to innovate is we have something that's inherent, and it's like pushing and continuing to, grow and change, this kind of switch that we were talking about. Like the whole human race seems to have some of that, and this becomes like another tool that's, if you're not cooking dinner, then what are you spending that time doing? You can spend that time to like just hang out.
Or we can think about it in the sense of like, I think people always think it's sort of like this like give or take sort of a situation. Like what will we not be able to do? And I think like we have been here for thousands of years. And the awesome and amazing thing is that when we have space to imagine, to wonder, we innovate. Right? It's how we have had everything that we have today is because humans have had the ability to wonder and imagine what if. Right. And so we give ourselves, so you imagine if we give ourselves more time, more space to be creative, right? Without that stress of like, well, I have to produce, I have to create right now, like what can be created. And I don't sort of see it as like we're less productive if we're not like on doing something. It's sort of like what happens in our bodies and our minds when you actually have this state of rest, right? Where you can wonder and create. And now you think back in, not just in history, but even now today. Right? And people think about like the archetype of a startup founder. They were just like tinkering in their garage, right?
Yeah.
They were tinkering in their garage or on a computer because they actually had space to actually think.
It was the hobby.
It was a hobby. They can think, they can create, and sort of like, it's like that pursuit of like what happens when you're not trying to plan and prepare and do X, but you actually have space to like let it sort of just come to you naturally. And I think that's the beauty of our humanness. And like if AI and these tools that will help us be productive and move away the things that we have decided are taxing our brains and we can make space for that creativity to rise, like I think like it's a wonderful thing. It's exciting to think about. And I think during the pandemic we kind of learned like what could you create and do if you're just sitting at home and you're not forced to be like out all the time. Like people were like leaning into gardening and they were like drawing again, and they were like I mean, I think the beautiful thing was like one of the things that I realized when I was home working like what I heard when I was home was I heard kids playing. I heard kids laughing. I heard families walking. I would take walks and there would be sidewalk chalk art all over. And I thought, how amazing and beautiful is that? And now that we're back to the hustle and bustle, I don't hear kids anymore.
Right.
And I don't see the sidewalk chalk art. And that was like really beautiful to me. And because we're now like, we got to get our kids to volleyball and we got to get them to this. And it would, you know, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying like what happens and what is created when we actually have space to just like rest. And I'm excited about AI in that sense where like what could it enable us to do even more. So
right. Yeah. No, I hear that. Almost recreating the space.
Yeah.
And that's why it's always my thought is like, you know, what will the children be able to do as they come up and grow with this technology when they have the space, right? And that's why I think so much creativity, at least for me, like, you know, when I spent a lot of time as a kid on the computer, downloading music or, you know, playing games and whatever I was doing on the computer, but I just became computer savvy because I spent that time there. And, you know, I know how to Google and look for something and search for something, and I know how to download music, and I know how to make a playlist, sort folders, keep my computer organized. These skills that were just because I had time and I was just
we got to get his playlist, y'all. We got to get his playlist.
Come on now, B-Scar Radio. Hey, I think what? See, volume 18, 19, we getting up there. Yeah, we'll send you that.
Drop the link in the comments, please.
We'll send you that. Spreading that childlike space.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing about innovation and technology that can enable that. Not that it has to be, but like, you know, it's going to be pretty interesting and amazing what can be created next. And I'm super excited about what's next. Yeah. Right? For sure.
Great segue.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what's next
in
your mind. Developments. What do you see the world looking like in 5-10 years? How are you investing right now, just based on a worldview of what you think is to come?
That's a really great question.
It's probably a multifaceted
it is
response.
Definitely 100% multifaceted.
You're diversifying that portfolio, I imagine.
I mean, you know,
different spaces.
You know, I'm diversifying and yet I'm focused.
Okay.
You know, I think that like we're coming off a period of time. A lot of people are coming off a period of time where they were just like spraying and praying. And I wasn't one of those people who was spraying and praying.
What do you mean by that?
Like literally like investing in like all kinds of things. Everything that was coming, they were just like spraying it around. And
spraying and praying.
Just spraying and praying, right?
Okay.
And it's like if it was outside of your thesis, it was exciting. Lots of people were never like in Web3. They were not in any type of crypto. And then suddenly they had a crypto fund. And it was just like, wait, you have a crypto fund and you have a Web3 fund. And it's like the metaverse and all those kinds of things. And I think that is I think that the best investors don't do those kinds of things. The best investors like look at the data, they analyze, and they watch trends, right? And it doesn't mean that things can't surprise you, right? But like if you say like computers are faster, like you go, well, the chips are getting better, right? What's like AMD and Broadcom and, you know, Intel, like what actually is the capacity for hardware once the chips get better, right? And what is the capacity of then software? And so you think about that. Well, if you say, well, also companies are, you know, new companies are sprouting up. Well, what do they need? They need cloud services, right? So of the three largest cloud service providers, AWS, Azure, and GCP, Google Cloud, what's happening there? What are all the services and the tangential things around that? If cloud is growing, you know, more DevOps, all those kinds of things. Everything is online, we also now worry about security. And cybersecurity kind of, you know, has a like sexy but not sexy kind of a thing. And yet we know if our lives are more and more online, then the height of like security and our protecting of our data is more and more important. Well, what does that look like at an enterprise level? What does that look like at a personal level? So I want to model myself after the investors that actually look deeply at the data,
right,
and try to choose the best companies based on what the data is telling you, what the trends are telling you, and imagine the what if chips get better, what can happen? If AI gets better, what can happen? And what are the pieces and the nodes that we can improve upon? And so I think that for me is what's exciting about the future, what I think should happen. And then I think, honestly, like, there's got to be more me's in the room, right?
Mm.
There's got to be more little Qianas whose mother didn't graduate from high school, first generation college student in rooms that, you know, she may not have known existed. And it isn't that I'm lacking anything or those future Qianas don't know as much. They know just as much, if not more, about life and culture. Like, we know how much culture drives so much in our society, and we don't oftentimes have rooms that look like the culture that's driving that technology and that innovation. And so I think 5-10 years, my hope or I imagine what should be is that more women disproportionately have more capital under management. Women are not a minority. Women have been minoritized. We're not a minority. In some generations, age ranges, we are more than 50%, right, of the demographics. Over 60s, 53% women, right? The largest transfer of wealth known in history is happening right now. More women will come into more wealth than they've ever had in history before. What will those women do with their money? How will they invest? What are the philanthropic things they will do? But more importantly, the layers on top of that. Who will be their bankers? Who will be their attorneys? Who will be their wealth managers? Right now, it's disproportionately men. Right. And so if we really want to fundamentally have a shift in the advancement of consumerism, leadership, who's leading companies and making really great decisions, all the data points to having a diversified team,
Right.
having diversified leadership. And it just simply means that we need to lean into people that look like me more. And so if you ask me what should 5-10 years or even the present look like, it should be more female. It should be more women of color. If we want the future that we know that we deserve, then we have to make those changes now.
Yeah.
And we have to sort of redefine it as not thinking about like, oh, we need to create more diversity. We need to lean in as business leaders into a new majority economy. It is simply just facts. It is simply just trends, right? What will happen by 2045? Who will be your major consumers, right? What will they want? What will they desire? And if you're not on that trend and you're not sort of leading and designing and strategically growing your business with that in mind, you will lose. And so what you need to do now is to change and shift and mold so that you're prepared for that shift that is happening right now before our eyes. And so, like, we deserve it and we want a more just and equitable and more successful world. Like, it literally needs to change now. And so I hope that there are more Qianas in the world doing exactly what I'm doing.
We love that.
Yeah.
What's the propensity to that shift that you've seen, I guess, over the last few years? I mean, how presently the landscape, how receptive are, I guess, companies to that change or startups that you're seeing? Like, you know, what is the intentionality now of having diverse teams versus, you know, when you got started in the venture ecosystem?
I think, you know, it ebbs and flows like a lot of things. And why I say I don't in particular lean into saying like, you know, this is a quota thing or this is a sheer number thing. I literally say, what does the data say? Who will be the buyers and the consumers and what will they want? What does the trend say right now, right? We know that more women will come into more wealth than they've ever had. What will they want? How will they spend their money? And if you are missing that boat, then you're going to miss out on an opportunity to make a shit ton of money, right? And if people want to make a lot of money, then they're going to have to make that shift. And so, like, for me, it's sort of like, if I can convince people or if people can look at the data and say, yeah, we literally have this new majority economy happening before our eyes, then your propensity will be to do exactly what that is telling you. But you could fight it. And I think that, like, we are seeing somewhat of a retreat, definitely since what we saw over the last few years. I don't want that to be, and which is why I'm just leaning into the work that we do at the Cap Table Coalition.
Yeah.
And we have several pillars, but one of the main pillars that I've been promoting and pushing is that the founders are the belle of the ball, not the VCs, not the investors. The founders who put the blood, sweat, tears, and really are ideating and growing businesses are the ones who control their destiny, and they actually control what their cap table looks like. And a lot of founders now have a lot of intentionality around diversifying their cap tables. There was a founder that I backed. She's out of Oregon, super amazing woman, building Wicked Saints, a game studio. It's like so brilliant. She's so amazing. And she was like, she looked up and she said, I don't have any women on my cap table. And more importantly, I don't have any Black women on my cap table. And I think that with that, it wasn't just like whether or not I could deploy capital into her company, but also could I lean into the needs that she had at that point? Can I help and support her as she grows her business? Well, I know the COO of Riot Games, who happens to be a woman. I know this person. So I'm going to lean into my relationships and to my network to help her effectively grow her business, and so that she can make a ton of money. And so for me, it's like, yes, she happens to be a woman. Yes, she happens to be a woman of color. That's all great. I want to make a lot of money. And more importantly, I think that the business that she is building deserves to exist in the world, and everyone should have it. And so I'm leaning into the fact that, like, we have a new set of consumers, a new set of gamers want new experiences, and the data says they want it. Their values are different, and so you've got to lean into that as an investor. And so I think it's got to be data driven, and you can fight it.
I agree with that.
You can fight it, but you might lose.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think that finding the data to prove that, hey, your bottom line is actually influenced or will be influenced by
swimming in data,
diverse leadership,
We're
or
swimming in
diverse teams.
We're swimming literally, like, we have so many reports, McKinsey to, everyone has said the exact same thing. The data actually says it. I don't know how many more reports and data sets that we need to prove it.
Right.
But we still continuously put out more data, more research that actually just keeps on saying the exact same thing over and over. And it's just like, okay, let's get another report. Let's get another report. And some companies will just get it off the bat, and they will build these epic, amazing, beautiful companies that will scale amazingly. And then they will just say, and the byproduct and is that scale. But like, we had so much intentionality about building our company from the beginning that it was like not even a thought. Like it was like an afterthought that we built this company the way we did it. Right. And like, we were all hyper focused on scale and growth and building an epic company. And it just happens to be a diverse group of people who are leading the ship.
Right.
Like, wow, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the ability for it to be a contagious culture with having diverse teams. If the best companies are the ones that are diverse, and those cap tables are also diverse, and those leadership teams who, get a nice little chunk of change after the company exits, and they go off and create a similar culture in their next venture. Now, we're talking about an exponential.
I want a sticker that says contagious culture.
Contagious
because that
culture.
Is
Do we like that?
That is a gem. I like that.
Hey, we could cheers to that. We could get a high quality.
That. Yes, I love that. Contagious culture. I think that is very valid, because what we're seeing too is more serial entrepreneurs. Right. And some of those serial entrepreneurs are saying, what I did right, I want to carry into the next company. What I did wrong, I don't want to carry. And so you perfect it. It's like yoga. It's a constant practice. Right. And I think as a good and effective leader, you are recognizing and leaning in and leaning out at times on those things that you believe should be contagious, that you should catch. And I think that what we see in some startup culture and some companies is that they created a ripe sort of environment for creativity to happen. And then that's why you see like the XX mafia, whatever, right? That exists. And then like you started an X company, and then that person like left after that exit and started another company, and it just becomes a cycle. And I think that we're on the sort of precipice of seeing that happen. And those people are going to more likely look like you than not. Yeah.
And this is just an incredible segue into a topic that I am currently on the journey to learn more about. I'd love to become a better leader. I think leadership is really important. One, how you build your own company or a series of companies, or operate just in life,
Mm-hmm.
but then also as you invest money into other founders and people who are building their own ideas, building their own businesses. From a leadership standpoint, what qualities have you found to be important for yourself and also for founders that you invest in?
So I'm going to take it back, looks like going to be like a 360 degree.
Let's
I think
do
the one thing that I can say about, and you'll like this too, is whether or not a founder is coachable. If they are receptive and open to learning and understanding where their gaps are, and whether they are transparent about where those gaps lie within them and their team, and whether or not they are willing to soak in, right, new inputs that can help them learn to get over that threshold. So for me, it's really about going back to like, is this person coachable? Is this person teachable? Right? Are they receptive to learning? Are they transparent about the things that they've made a mistake on? Right? Can we work through that together? I want to be the type of leader, and I hope that I am the type of leader that admits where I'm wrong, right? What I don't know, right? Like, I don't serve anybody by acting as if I know everything. In fact, I know very little, right? And I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I'm okay with saying that. And I want to back leaders that are like that they go, I'm really good at this, Qiana, but I really don't know. I really suck at that. Can you help me with that? And the answer is either, yes, I can help you personally, or I know someone in my network who can. And so I think for me, at the baseline, it is whether or not you are open and receptive to learning. And you're the consummate sort of like lifelong learner, right? You don't know everything. And you've got to surround yourself by smarter people who can like fill in those gaps. And I think that like having that type of humility to lead through those challenging times is really going to help you when you do face those difficult moments. And it's when leaders really like rise and become the type of people that others want to mold themselves after, and not exactly the exact same way, but because they recognize that there's some inputs that I'm going to bring in from other people and other experiences, and I want to see more of that, right? And because I do believe that we live in a society right now, because there's so many like social media platforms, and we're oftentimes pretending everyone wants to be an expert. Everyone wants to have a master class. Everyone wants to have a course. Everyone wants to like be seen as like perfect and, like without fail, that meal is perfect. Your outfit is perfect. Your house is clean. Everything just seems so perfect. And in reality, life is really messy. Startups and companies are really messy. And we don't do ourselves any justice by projecting or replicating a story of perfection. We just simply don't. And I tell people all the time, like I probably mess up all the time, but I'm open to saying like, oh God, I got that wrong. Like, or saying, I don't know how to do X. Yeah. Can you tell me how to do that? And so I know we're in a hyper social, hyper like visual sort of world, but I think that part of this humanness and leadership is really saying like, I got it wrong. Because you're always on, you feel like you're always on, but like people want to know that you're human too.
Yeah. Right?
They want to like see that soft side of you. They want to see that like you understand like, challenges that we might be going through in our personal lives or in our professional lives, and how we're able to like push through that. And I don't want to be the type of leader who says like, you got this big problem going on, I don't want to know or see about it. Like that just isn't real.
Right.
And I'm really into the realness of humans and what we're on, what I think we're on this spinning rock for. Because we're literally on a spinning rock, Brennan. We have no idea why we're here or how we got here, but we're just like on this spinning rock, and it's in this sheer vastness. And it's really oftentimes really scary to think about it that
100%. Like
really, like, dude, we're on a spinning rock right now.
Yeah.
Why? For what reason?
A spinning rock that's spinning around the sun.
And we don't even know really, we kind of conceptually, scientifically, they know why, but like, why does that thing work that way? I don't know. So my thing is like, you're on this spinning rock. What are you going to do with the time that you're on this spinning rock?
Are we going to go down this rabbit hole, Qiana? Because I'll go there.
Listen, like, why are you here? Why are you here? Why am I here? Why are any of us here? And so like, I don't want to spend my life like being something that I'm not and being fake. I want to be in the realness of like the messiness of life. Yeah. And I want to be an example of other women and people that say like, if she can do it, I can do it too.
That's inspirational. Having the vulnerability for people to see you in a successful light and doing all of these things, but then also to be able to see you say that I'm wrong, or, you know, I have flaws too, or I'm willing to be goofy or hang out, or, you know, I'm just like you, and like that, you know, humanness quality. And that coachability, obviously being a football player, I see this a lot.
Yeah, of course.
Teammates and also in myself, you know, trying to be coachable, you know, trying to listen to a coach's feedback, or, you know, if they're trying to correct my technique or change my technique, or even from teammates too, right? And then making sure I have trust, or hopefully there's trust between coaches and players to be able to give and take feedback in a way that's real and not taking it personally.
And you extend that to business, I assume, too, right? Like you listen to your customers, you listen to what your audience might want. You're like looking at the data, like you're pulling that in because it's an ebb and flow, right? You're coaching, and you want to be coached by your potential customer too. What are their needs? What do they want, right? So that you can produce or give them what they need, right? If you don't sit there and you don't listen, and you're not essentially being coached by them or taught by them what their problem is, like how do you actually begin to solve it? You can't.
That's real.
And so I think it's like it extends into like business, it extends to everything that we do.
Is there a thin line between coachability and lack of vision or lack of confidence?
Oh, that is a good one.
There are times when maybe I'm being coached up by my coach or an individual who telling me something, they have the best intentions, but in my mind to feel like I can do it better. And doing it the way that I do it is, you know, I have confidence in that. And also I think that there are a lot of great players in the league also have that same kind of confidence. There's a balance, but I also imagine with founders too, they have this idea, this vision, and, you know, they kind of probably ain't hearing a whole lot of like advice or guidance. And maybe that same trait will burn them in some ways, but and sometimes I imagine like sticking to your guns and what you believe is how you accomplish that thing. It seems like there maybe is a thin line.
Is it a thin line, or is it just an ebb and flow? It's a sort of a constant state of learning, growing, being coached, then practicing what you're being coached, right? The coaching aspect is, can you be coached, right? Not just can someone tell you and show you film and then tell you how to do this play and all those kinds of things, but then you actually got to go into the game, Brennan, and you've got to actually do it. You've got to perform it, right? So that idea of like coaching, like you're taking that information, and you'll likely, once you get to the field, you will tweak it, right? Because guess what? Your coach designed that play based on what they thought was going to happen, that could happen. But guess what? The unknown might happen. Can you actually then respond in real time to that real shit that happens on the field? Yeah. And that coach isn't with you right there, right? So you are, like you said, as a founder, right? Do you have that vision? Does that founder who says, do I have all these inputs, and then I hit the field and I've got to make a snap decision, right? To the best of my ability with the information that I have at that time. Yes. That isn't about like lack of vision. That's just saying you've been coached, you've been sort of given the scaffold, and then you're put into the game. Right. The coach isn't like on your back, Brennan, right? Like your boss or, you know, your mentor isn't always going to be there. So and as a leader, I'm not always going to be there. When I, you know, was a teacher, like if I was out sick or went to a conference, like I would tell my kids like, oh, you guys should like act as if I'm here in the room, right? Like as if I'm here, but I'm not here. You're on your own, not on your own because there was a substitute, but like I'm not here. And so the idea for me as a leader really is not about, do I control every facet and everything? It really is what I know to be true. I will not be here forever. I will not be here forever. At some point, I'm going to be a free agent. I'm going to leave. Someone must fill that spot, right? And I'm hoping and praying that one of you is going to take my spot. And my job is to train and develop and coach you so you can excel and take this spot. That's the idea. And that's what I think is like a constant, a continuation. Right. So that it's an ebb and flow, right?
I like that.
It's an ebb and flow.
Considering the inputs, the coaching points. Yeah. But then that output, it's you.
It hits the fan.
It's on you.
It hits the fan. It's still on you. You've got to perform it. You got to do it, right? And so I think that's a hallmark of leadership.
That's fire. I love that.
High quality content. You asked for it.
Come on
you
now.
Got it.
Come on now.
All right.
And now, what all the people have been waiting for.
Uh-oh.
The high quality questions with Miss Patterson. Q. Yes. Qiana. What television show or movie character most resembles you?
Ooh, is this physically or?
It could be a physical resemblance or just a personality resemblance, a life resemblance. At any stage, I guess, of your life, whenever this character resembled you.
Probably, you know what people would say, like Jasmine Guy's character in A Different World.
In A Different World?
Yeah.
I've never seen that one.
Oh my God, I'm so old.
Jasmine Guy?
Yeah, Jasmine Guy. Do you know who Jasmine Guy is?
No.
Okay.
What's the character's name?
Like Whitley.
Whitley.
Is that Whitley? Yeah, I think it's Whitley. Oh my God, I'm so old. Jesus.
Yeah, you look. We all in here. The Different World.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a spinoff of the Cosby Show. When the daughters went to college, then they created a show called A Different World, and they went to Hillman, which was supposed to be a black college. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Ooh, this is a good one. I'm curious to hear this one. What is your ideal morning routine?
Ooh, ideal.
You got all the morning to yourself. You got a good night's rest. First off, what time are you waking up? And then what are you doing?
I'm waking up at 6:30, 6:45. It's my natural state. I'm making a really amazing smoothie that has kale and spinach and pineapple, and some really good protein powder and collagen. And I have music in the background. And I probably have some incense going, and I don't feel rushed. There's nothing on my calendar before noon.
Oh, that's
nothing
the best.
on my calendar before noon.
Love that.
Yeah.
What kind of music?
I'm definitely like a neo soul kind of a gal, but I can definitely get with some like lo-fi chill beats.
Nice.
Yeah.
Love that. And then I had another question. What type of protein powder in your smoothie?
Whey,
okay.
Whey, yeah.
Flavored?
No, unflavored.
Unflavored. You let the fruit do the talking in your
Yes,
smoothies.
that's right.
Okay.
No vanilla, no chocolate. I don't like any of those kind of things, just unflavored.
Is there a certain brand that you gravitate towards?
No, whatever's at Trader Joe's usually.
Yeah. Same with the collagen too.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've been doing
I'm not a coffee person, so I've got to figure out how to like get that like
the jolt.
Yes. From Seattle. I don't know. I'm from Seattle, and I do not drink coffee.
Do you
I don't
not like
the
caffeine?
I don't like the taste of.
Oh, you don't like the taste?
I don't like the taste of coffee, and I don't drink or eat a lot of caffeinated stuff anyway. So
yeah,
I'm naturally like on 10 most of the time.
You gotta try a chai tea latte.
Oh, I do like chai. You're not supposed to say chai tea latte. Chai is tea. That means chai is tea. So you can't.
But it's
say
a type
chai
of tea though.
But you just say chai.
But I can have chai
latte.
pudding or chai.
No, you're thinking of chia pudding. That is not the same thing, Brennan.
I could have a chai
Latte.
flavored bar,
Sure, yes.
but then I would call it a chai bar.
Yes.
This is chai tea,
Chai is tea.
but it could be a bar.
Okay.
All right, next question. What's your most memorable celebrity encounter? This could be a good one. It could be a bad one. It could be a
most. Oh my gosh. Yes. So I was here in West Hollywood, and I was going into the Soho West Hollywood location, and it was Harrison Ford. Do you know who Harrison Ford is?
Yes. Was he with Jasmine Guy?
He was not with Jasmine Guy. He was with he was with this other guy in that same age range, actor. And I walked in, and I love Indiana Jones, right? And so like I just like looked at these. It's classic, and I totally looked at them, and I was like, wow. And then I said hi, and then Harrison Ford said, and I said, how are you this evening? And he said, better now.
Oof.
Ooh. Ooh.
Did he wink at you too?
He did, and I was like, okay, Harrison Ford, being a little flirty with me. That was awesome.
Did you shoot your shot?
I did not shoot my shot.
Nah?
No, I just was like, oh my God, thanks. That was
We're not trying to go gallivanting with Indiana Jones?
I mean, listen. Now that I think about it.
Come on now. What is the movie?
Not.
The Tomb of the Tomb. Indiana Jones and the
Temple of Doom.
The Temple. Hey.
Listen.
Take Harrison to the Temple.
I'm like, he could have taken me to any temple. I'm joking. Cut that. But clearly, I did not. I was not going to any temple, obviously, that night.
Yeah, right.
I did not. I'm not good at the flirty thing.
No,
I'm not.
So he gave you the better now, and then you smiled and
I smiled and was like, okay.
Okay.
I didn't know what to say.
Now it's time to go find the fruit for my smoothie.
Yeah, no, I was in the night, so I was like, okay, I'm getting in the elevator, go meet a friend at the Soho.
Oh, this is at Soho.
Yeah,
that's right.
At Soho.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, right.
Harrison Ford.
Yeah, Harrison
Who
Ford.
would have thunk?
Yeah.
Boy got game.
Hey, he knows where it's at.
He's got some years under his belt now.
Hey.
He's been doing it for a little bit, I imagine. Prime Indiana Jones times, that guy, man, he was hitting on all cylinders. Who is your favorite follow on social media?
Ooh, my favorite.
Any platform.
Besides you?
Oh, hey, and you say you ain't good at the little flirting thing. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Second best follow on social media. It's probably like a journalist or an academic.
On Instagram or?
Oh no, my Instagram is private.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So like on Twitter.
Oh, like
or
okay, your Twitter
LinkedIn
user.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when Twitter was a thing, it was like it is or was like an academic or a journalist that I had admired, or like someone has responded to me, which I thought is really good, because at the heart of me is I'm kind of like a nerd and an intellectual. So like if someone like sort of like follows me, it sort of tells me like, oh, they see the genius in me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, okay, I get it.
You follow back?
Of course. I already had probably followed them anyway. So,
right.
Yeah.
Do you like LinkedIn or Twitter better?
I mean, they serve different purposes. Both of them for me have operated like my public persona, professional persona.
Okay. Yeah.
But they serve different purposes, and so I used to love Twitter for like information, right, and the rapid fireness of like the information that you could get and learn really easily. It did feel like a huge town square, and now it doesn't feel that way anymore. But that's for another topic and day.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I like LinkedIn.
You like LinkedIn?
I do, yeah, and I want to post more, but I just feel like I'm really particular about what I say, especially when I'm writing, and I just got to take the time, and make it like a part of my day.
Right.
So I just don't do that enough. But when I'm on LinkedIn and I'm following people, because I feel like when folks do post, they try to give you a little nugget. I've taken
That's
some
right.
nuggets off of LinkedIn.
Yeah. I sometimes like write on LinkedIn, and then I inevitably get someone who says, you should write more. Like, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm like, I think I write and put things out there in the world when it makes sense. Right. And so like, I think
Yeah.
for me, like when, like probably like you, when you get those nuggets and you see people sort of like really like digging into their thing and their space, like it's really awesome. Right. And you can like respect that and you can admire that. And I love that. Even if it's not some area that I'm specifically really knowledgeable about, I like learning.
Yeah. Love learning. Forever student.
Yes.
Lifelong learner.
Lifelong learner. You
There we
got it.
go.
Yes.
Wow. This has just been an incredible
That rapid fire was
conversation.
like so easy. I thought you were gonna hit me with like some like spicy stuff.
Some spicy stuff.
Yeah, I was
mean,
like, I was
Harrison
ready for
Ford made it kind of spicy now.
Harrison, if you are listening, I'm ready for the temple.
Hey, we'll get this on Harrison Ford's ears at some point in time.
Yeah.
And we'll try to spice up our high quality questions.
Yeah.
I mean, you prompted some spicier questions for our next guest.
All right.
So,
fair enough.
Qiana, it's been an amazing conversation. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Brennan.
Yeah, dropping gems for us.
High quality content, here to serve.
That's been high quality content with Q. And that's another episode of B-Scar TV. Please leave us a review, a comment, holla at us, give us some feedback, constructive criticism. We are always trying to get better because the pursuit of high quality content is an endless pursuit. Till next time, peace. This episode of B-Scar TV has been brought to you by Scarlett Creative. For the full-length video episode and more content, find us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at B-Scar TV. And please, leave us a review. Drop a comment. What do you want to see? What do you want to hear? Who do you want to hear from? We would love to hear from you. This is your host, with the most, Brennan Scarlett, signing off. Peace.